BruCast is back, baby.
This BruCast episode is brought to you by the BruCast store. Explore a store filled with awesome goodies from hoodies to t-shirts to mugs. We've got you covered. Stay in style with BruCast. Embrace the shock, set the trend. Visit now bru-cast.com/store. Link below. All right, hi everyone. Happy Easter. If it's your first time watching BruCast, make sure to like and subscribe. If you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, please rank the show 5 stars. This will ensure that the podcast is recommended to even more people and allow me to keep doing what I love. BruCast is also on Instagram, X, and TikTok, where we upload shorts with the highlights of the show. So follow now. BruCast on Instagram, X, and TikTok. Links on the description below. All right, so our guest today is Daniel Thomas, or should I say Kane Nash? How are you doing, Daniel?
I'm well, thanks, Bruno. Pleasure to be here. Thanks for inviting me to come on. I appreciate it.
Oh, it's a pleasure. Absolute pleasure. I saw your profile, all the things you do. Man, it's impressive. A lot of cool stuff.
Thank you, man.
So instead of me doing a bad job introducing yourself, why don't you do the honors?
No worries. I'm an Australian writer, filmmaker, and actor, and I'm based here in Hamburg, Germany. So I'm quite a multifaceted creative, but my overarching thing is obviously storytelling. But I have also worked in architecture and toured as a musician. But all these creative endeavors that I've done along my career have ultimately informed where I'm at now in terms of filmmaking and acting and writing. So that's a little about what I do.
Cool. So musician, what did you play?
Yeah, so I was a drummer. Well, I still am. I do it as a hobby, but I was a drummer through my late teens and 20s. And actually, it was drumming that brought me to Europe. So I was working in the architecture industry, and I basically had call it a burnout. I was doing a lot. I was doing far too much, not dealing with some things, and I basically crashed and kind of burned and had to take a complete left turn. And my complete left turn was to leave Australia and my secure job, my family and friends, girlfriends, everything, and just go to London and be a full-time musician.
Whoa. Yeah, that's quite a turn, man. So where's the family now? Did you abandon everyone? Come on, Daniel.
No. I mean, I was originally born in the UK, so
okay.
it was actually returning to the place I was born.
Right.
I was raised in Australia. I went to Australia when I was 2. So I had some family in the UK, but when I say I left everything behind, obviously, I was still in contact with everybody, but it was just a very dramatic left turn from a lot of kind of, my career was very secure. I mean, architecture is not that secure, but where I was working was going okay. But I really had to take a drastic change, especially for my artistic and creative self.
So basically, you're not feeling fulfilled in your career as an architect.
That
Okay.
Yeah, that was a big part of it. And I love architecture. I've spoken about it quite a bit, but I I love it. But the reasons I studied and got into that industry, I wasn't finding the fulfillment in the nature of the industry. So that when I say I had a kind of burnout, that was part of it, was that the creative fulfillment wasn't aligned as much as it could have been.
Mm-hmm. I understand. Yeah, I hear from several people like it's never too late to find your true passion. I saw that on a post somewhere on TikTok, Instagram, something like that. The founder of McDonald's, he founded McDonald's when he was 40. I don't know who founded certain company when they were 50. Harrison Ford just became famous. No, I don't think Harrison Ford became. Anyway, but there's, you know what I'm talking. Like, it doesn't
No,
matter.
he did.
He did.
Harrison Ford took a while. Yeah, he
Yeah.
took a while from what I know to get to that, to get to Star Wars. It was quite a bit, but I agree with you, man. It's absolutely never too late. Absolutely.
Hmm. So, what did you play? That's super interesting. So, you're a drummer in a band. Did you play rock? What was?
Yeah, yeah. So the first band I was in was kind of rock pop, female singer, and then the band that I took to London was a different band. It was a three-piece, and it was rock, but it was bordering on like psychedelic stuff, but very simple guitar-driven stuff. And because the three of us knew the scene in Melbourne because we'd been playing there for a while, we we sort of felt that we knew where we were going to hit a glass ceiling in Melbourne,
Hmm.
and that's why we were like the three of us were like, why don't we try and take this bigger and go to London, and as we say in Australia, just have a crack.
Okay, what that means? Like, give it a try.
It means give it a shot, go all in, and just why not try and take it as big as we can go.
Okay.
That Yeah, that was the thinking behind it. So we went in not realizing what we were in for actually. So
Man,
uh,
that's so interesting. It's so cool.
it was the thing about the drumming experience is that it was more than so the time in London was a 2 year period,
Okay.
and it was a very intense 2 years because I was playing shows. I'd completely turned my world
Yeah.
into a different direction, playing all these unique and different types of shows in the UK, dealing with things that were going wrong. But I had a lot of time for myself in between practicing and shows to really do a lot of reflection and work on myself. So this move to London was very much about me stepping out of the noise and then taking a real look at where I wanted to go in life, because a lot of things I was doing were not serving me,
Hmm.
and were not serving my well-being. So this period in London was really intense in so many ways. I was performing, I was working on myself, but I still had some very destructive behaviors going on, and these behaviors and this kind of self-destructive stuff wasn't making a lot of sense to me, and I was trying to figure out why I was continuing these patterns. Um, so this time in London was so important for me on so much more than just, I wanted to go to London to become a big rock star. That was kind of the superficial side of it. The real truth and core of it was you need to go to London to really find who you truly are. With and by playing and doing shows, that was helping me find that.
Hmm. Hmm. Interesting. Have you seen the Bob Marley movie, the one that came out recently?
I haven't yet, but it's cool you say that because he's a big influence in my family, particularly with my father. My dad spent time in Jamaica and was a massive Bob Marley fan. So when I saw the film was coming out, I was like, oh wow, I've got to check that out. But then I saw it didn't have some great reviews, but not to read reviews. I got to see it for myself, mate. But I haven't seen it yet, but I'm keen.
Hmm.
You?
Yes,
You-
yes, I've watched it, and the reason why I bring this up is that, without giving any spoilers whatsoever, is that that's his history, right? That happened in real life. Bob Marley, he went to the UK to wind down, kind of find himself, and I see some similarities there. So it's a very good movie. Then
Interesting.
yeah.
Cool. See, when I see a film, I always look for the relatable. I don't know, that's just me. I think we all do. We look for like, well, some people not so much maybe, but it's like, what's the relatable? So if that I didn't know about the UK part of his journey, so I probably would I'd definitely have to check it out.
Do it. I recommend it. I think I know the reviews were not super good, but
But you can't base it on reviews. You gotta, yeah,
nah, no.
yeah.
So, but just you play from time to time, just to wind down or to relax. As
I do, and I jam with my son now, which is
oh,
awesome, and that's actually really unique. I never expect that. He's learning guitar,
mm,
and I haven't pushed him that way. He's just he's obviously had a lot of it around him, but he's learning guitar, and we jam now, and that's pretty cool.
yeah,
So yeah, yeah.
that's amazing, man. I thought about. I play the guitar, but very, very like not professionally. Let's put it that way. And I thought maybe like what other instrument that I could learn, and drums would be cool. But man, my neighbor would kill me.
Neighbors are an issue.
Yeah,
Neighbors are an issue. It's funny you say that because when I first convinced my dad to buy me my first drum kit when I
yeah.
was a teenager, he was like, no, not with the neighbors. So actually, I stuffed a drum full of newspaper,
Oh,
and then I showed him and I hit it, and he was really surprised. He was like, oh, actually, that does muffle the sound a lot. So he's like, I'll buy you the kit for your 18th birthday. I'll help you get it. Every day, so I filled all the drums with the newspaper. Every day I took one piece out. And so after 3 months, he burst into my room, and he's like, why the heck are these drums so loud? And then he saw there's just one piece of newspaper bouncing around in the tom. And I had conditioned his ears by taking one out every day. But that was the only way I was going to get the. So he didn't know whether to be angry or whether to say, hey, good job.
wow, that's cool. I didn't know you could do that. That's interesting. So, Daniel, would you say what is smarter to do that or to buy one of those electric guitars? Because I heard, sorry, drums. Because I heard they're shit.
I have an electric kit, and
Yeah,
I think for apartments they're great.
yeah.
For an apartment, they're really cool because you can get like booming, you can get your favorite songs in there at a really good level, and you could play along.
Mm.
It's never going to have the same feel as a real kit, but I'd say these days 70% you can even get the feel. So I like it, but that's just because I've lived for apartments, in apartments for a long time. If I was in a bigger space, I'd always go for the real thing, you
Okay,
know,
the real thing. If you can, the real thing. Okay.
if you can. Absolutely.
Yeah. Isn't
Absolutely.
isn't there like a drummer? I don't know from ACDC, Metallica, so one of those big bands. It's like a 360 drum. You know what I'm talking?
Oh yeah. Where you swivel all the way around.
Yeah,
Yeah, well, my influence as a drummer, was Tommy Lee,
totally.
just because of his showmanship and his like roller coasters. And um, if you look at Tommy Lee Wildside, that Motley Crue video, it's one of their earlier tracks, but he has a drum kit that elevates and spins round,
What?
and that this that stuff this but on top of that, his beats are really unique and awesome. So, he was a big kind of influence.
He's
Um,
from Motley Crue.
Motley Crue, Tommy Lee.
All right, all right. I'm gonna take a look. Sounds interesting. Okay, I'm. Wow. Okay, this looks serious.
Serious is one way to describe it.
Oh, I've seen recently on YouTube. I don't know when it happened, but Foo Fighters, they invited like a young fan who became famous on YouTube as a drummer. They invited him uh, to one of the concerts to play with them. Did you see that?
Yeah, it's awesome I think I did see so. It's awesome when they get people up on stage. It's like, and then some kid rips it. It's like great.
Yeah, yeah, it's crazy. All right, so drummer, background in architecture, moved to UK, and so how long take you to find yourself in the UK? Because how many?
I think the finding oneself never stops.
Ah,
Never
yeah,
stops.
yeah.
You know, it sounds clear. It sound I don't want to sound too cliche with the find myself, but it's like I think that's a lifelong journey.
Mm,
But like I say, it was a really intense couple of years, and then as a result of that time, I was introduced to Hamburg, and I really became curious to Germany. You know, I visited Berlin, and I had this real curiosity, and then when things kind of ended in London, they kind of fell apart in the end. Um, but I'd never call it a failed experience because although I didn't set out I didn't achieve what I hoped, which was this kind of, let's get a record deal and obviously take it as far as we can. You know, the band fell apart, and I was kind of rock bottom. Um, but yeah, at that time I was introduced to I went to Berlin, and I was really curious there, and then I found myself moving to Germany. Um, I actually went back to Australia, and then I came to Germany with an ex girlfriend. So yeah, and then I really loved Germany. And when I after that whole London experience and having a son here in Germany, he's my primary reason for being in Germany. Is my son, but I love Hamburg as a city. And when I came to Hamburg, we're talking 10 years ago, a little over 10 years ago now. I really started to step forward in the direction I wanted to, which was acting primarily, and filmmaking and writing. And this is a whole crazy thing of its own, because as soon as I started to pursue that here in Germany, people literally told me to my face I was insane. Um, that as an Australian actor in Germany, no chance. English is not the first language here, uh, and this actually drove me to like do it. I was like, you can do this anywhere. You just have to take it into your own hands. So, so the whole, particularly the acting side of things, as an Australian actor in Germany, has been pretty crazy, pretty wild.
wild, wild. Okay, how wild? Wild.
Well, I found myself uh, on sets and in projects that I just never imagined. Um, I would find myself on German sets. And I've had some really amazing. Wild is in an amazing way. Like I had some opportunities here that I never would have thought could present.
Like what? Being in different movies that you never imagined that you would be able to work
Yeah,
with.
just well, I mean, early on when people were telling me I was crazy, I then got quite a big commercial,
Mm,
and they were looking for some international guys, and uh, that whole experience shooting that commercial for a car was it was a really unique experience, and it showed me that I could do that here, and that I could hold my own.
mm-hmm,
Um, and that was quite early on in my time here, so it really showed me that I can do this, and that I can make my own opportunities here, and go for things. Of course, I thought maybe that was like, oh, my big break, getting this commercial, and I didn't work after that for a while. Um, but yeah, just very unique experiences on German sets. Surrounded by German speaking. Playing drug dealers and cops and all sorts of stuff. All early on, very small roles with no text, but just in these pretty cool situations.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, but I mean that's how I don't know how it works, but I assume that's how every actor starts, right? As playing small roles without lines. I assume so.
That's the way I saw it. I was like, I did a lot of extra work just to get familiar on German sets. So I did I did a lot of extra work, like hundreds and hundreds of hours. But for me, it was almost like film school for me.
Okay.
It was about sitting on sets, observing what was going on, um, seeing how scenes were being blocked and working. So it was a lot of observing. And then from doing all that, the agent at the time, then I got a couple of small kind of bit parts.
Mm-hmm.
But then ultimately it became about like the networks of people and
Yeah.
the stuff that I could make for myself, you know. Um, so I was doing a lot early on here, and now I've kind of stripped that back and am very, very much focused on creating my own stuff.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So I want to ask a little bit more about starting as an actor. So you're in Germany, you moved to Germany. So you originally moved to Berlin or you directly to Hamburg?
Directly to Hamburg,
Directly
yeah.
to Hamburg. And what was so appealing about Germany, sorry, Hamburg specifically?
The the uh the rock and roll history here, the Beatles history,
Oh,
have you been to Hamburg? I saw you were in Germany. Were you in Germany recently, or
I live in Germany. I'm here.
you do live here?
Yeah.
That's what I no, I thought you were in Germany, and then I saw Prague. And then I saw Prague, and because at first I was like, oh, Bruno lives in Germany as well.
Yeah.
But then I saw Prague, and I thought, oh, you might have been traveling around Europe.
Yeah.
Okay. Um, how long have you been here?
Um, let's see, about 7 years, 8 years, I guess. So I live in a small town called Gütersloh, and then I moved to Berlin, and then I lived in Berlin for a couple of years. It was not my cup of tea,
Ah, interesting.
because Berlin is a completely different place from the
Yes,
whole rest of Germany. It
or
wa-
the world,
all
in
the
fact.
all the world, yeah, yeah. It's mind blowing. Um, all the techno scene, all the parties, all the opportunities. It's like everything happens there. It's amazing. But I couldn't see myself living in the long term there.
Hmm.
It's like either you love it or you hate it. And the thing is, I love it for the first years, and then I just okay, I need to find a calmer place,
I completely understand. I totally get it.
to
Um, yeah, and that was this, I was in Hamburg because of family primarily.
yeah.
I think if there wasn't family, I may have gone to Berlin.
Okay.
And I'd spent a bit of time in Berlin, but when I came to Hamburg, I was like, wow, it's what you're saying. I was like, this city is actually really livable. But it also has, the Reeperbahn and the Pauli Football Club, and
Yeah.
it's all there if you want it, but it's very green and there's lots of water, and
Yeah.
it is in terms of raising a family, and there's a nice like middle class here.
Mm,
In London, that wasn't the case, especially as an artist. It was you were either completely broke or you're in a good job. There was kind of no middle, you know.
okay.
And now Berlin's there. I've had a lot of different experiences in Berlin, but I know it well enough now to understand what you're saying. For
Yeah.
me, it's a bit too big. Um, it's I like Hamburg because it's a little bit more village like. I can get on the bike, go to a mate's place down the road. It's a city, but it's like a village, and
Oh yeah.
and I like that. Yeah.
Yeah, me too. I would. I don't think I ever been to Hamburg, but from what you're telling me, I love it already.
I seriously do. I recommend it. I really can't recommend it enough. Every city pros and cons, right?
Yeah.
Germany pros and cons, Australia pros and cons. Like but having lived in Australia, the UK, and Germany, I have this interesting experience from all those places, and yeah, I'm quite happy here in Hamburg, but that hasn't been without its struggles.
Mm-hmm. All right. So Hamburg, want to become an actor? What's the first thing someone does? Someone do like you look for an agent?
The first thing I started doing was training. I mean, I knew that acting was something I wanted to do when I was a kid. I did like a workshop, and I really just I loved it. But then kind of life got in the way, and I didn't return to that dream until as I say, until I came to Germany. And then so when I came here and started really committing, going all in on it, I was like, I need to train. So
Mm.
I found a, a studio here to train with, really cool teacher and class in Meisner technique, which is a particular acting technique. And I did that for a few months. It's Meisner, it's Meisner or IE. I'm not sure if it's EI or Meisner technique.
Um,
And
so one second. The Meisner technique focused on three components: emotional preparation, repetition, and improvisational methods. Instead of simply relying on memory, this helps actors in training to focus on their scene partner, building a truthful performance. Okay, so you repeat a lot, you use a little bit of improvisational techniques, and have emotional preparation.
so I was unaware of this technique, but it was it was really awesome in that in this time that I started to do it, it started to help me learn to trust in my own instincts.
Mm-hmm.
And it was very helpful, but it was very intense that 3 months. So I started with that, and I was it was intense in a way because there was a lot of German actors in there. It was really mixed. So sometimes I was like trying to act with the German scene partner and stuff, and I had no German. Uh, um, and then after that period, yeah, it was like, okay, how can I go for castings and auditions and find agents? So I found a couple of like commercial agents, but as I say, I started going on a lot of extra work, and that was more because I've always been very interested in filmmaking as a whole.
Mm-hmm.
So I love the acting and performance side of things, but it's about what can I bring to a story because I'm a writer as well. So it's I'm very interested in all the aspects of filmmaking.
Mm-hmm.
And when I was on all these sets, I always had a genuine curiosity for every role on set. Um, so yeah, that was like film school to me, but it was also acting training because often it was real simple stuff like, timing and you got to hit your mark and things like that. So I started exercising the muscle just by getting out there and trying to get set experience. Training is, some people really advocate for the training. I think camera technique training is important.
What is that?
Um, like just the basics of being in front of the camera, you know, the I did a workshop in Florence in Italy actually, on my way to Europe, and that was very much about like, just the basics of camera work, understanding the frame, understanding uh, how to work in front of the camera. The Meisner was getting more to the core of behavior and scene work. So I think if you can try and find a balance between all those things, that's awesome. Because it's not one thing fits all. You know what I mean?
Mm. You're talking when it comes to acting methods.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many different approaches. There's so many different ways to approach it,
Mm.
and there's different types of actors. And it took me so long to really find the things that I like groove with and what I'm interested in being
Mm.
challenged by. There's things that I just am not suited to, and that's cool. That's totally cool. It's like I've had to work to find like an awareness of so what can I offer and what can I work on.
Mm.
But if I'm scared, that's good. I try and lean into the fear. That's the kind of philosophical part of it, is just if something scares me, I think that's a good sign.
Because it means you're going out of your comfort zone, basically, right?
A lot of stretching, a lot of stretching into the discomfort. But I got some classic audition stories of like falling flat on my face because when I when I first started this in Germany, I was sort of I thought, even though I didn't have a lot of German, I was like, I think I can go into an audition, and it was kind of bold. Like I was going into these German auditions, but it was actually not that smart because they're risk adverse. And if you can't speak German and you try, so I had a few of these German auditions where I just like bombed as hard as you can, and then I had to take a step back and go, realistically, um, is that wise to throw yourself in until or just improve your German, or
Hmm.
figure out what you want to, what type of things you want to do.
Yeah, but sometimes you're lucky, and it happens that they were looking for someone from Australia, English speaking. Who knows, right? It can happen.
Uh, I love that attitude
Yeah.
because that was not what that was my attitude. I was like, people were saying you're crazy, but I'm like, well, if I'm the only Aussie guy here, and if somebody wants an Aussie guy, there you go. I had to really embrace who I was, as opposed to like trying to fit into, trying to become something
Mm.
else, fit into other people's idea.
When it comes to different acting methods, I hear often this. I think it's just called method acting, where the actor embodies his his um his character for the whole duration of the project, and I hear like crazy stories about it. I think Jared Leto, when he was filming for Suicide Squad, he was playing the Joker,
Joker
and
is
the Joker by nature is kind of nuts, right? Kind of crazy. And I heard so many crazy stories. It was like, I'm not sure if it's true, the internet, right? But I heard that he was like sending rats to people through mail
yeah,
and eating pictures of
yeah.
people.
And making prank calls, is I think calling people. Yeah, no, I don't doubt that for a second. It's fun. It's awesome you mentioned Jared Leto. He's one of my, like, I really admire the
Yeah.
guy, in terms of his body of work. I mean, how many people on the planet have won an Oscar and sold millions of albums? Like, this is,
Oh yeah.
with 30 Seconds to Mars, this is like, to tour the world, sell millions of albums, and not not about the awards thing, but just the level that he's at. It's really admirable, especially as he's one of these multifaceted guys as well. But yeah, but in the method thing, um, I love that, fascinates me, and I've experimented with opportunities I've had. I am much more drawn to going all in. Um, but I think I think there's a balance between, like, taking the character home. Uh, it's a tricky balance in the experiences I've had. I think I'm in a far better position now to really have a healthy relationship with going all into a character. It's if that makes sense.
What would be the health approach? So when
Well,
you're
it's you.
go ahead,
mm.
sorry.
Well, it's just when you come off set and you come home, and you're dealing with your family. If you're still being a psycho,
Yeah, okay.
but at the same time, I understand the importance of going all in and embodying the character as much as possible, and bringing the character in a safe way. So I think it's about pulling from a lot of
Hmm.
tools. If the more full the toolbox is, the more tools you can pull from that. And for me, I draw in the opportunities I've had. I draw from a lot of life experience, and I think when you've had a really, like, richness of life experience, you have so much to pull from, um, to try and find in a character, which is awesome. So all this, the architecture, the drumming, the experiences I had in my youth have all fed into my toolbox.
Of course. Imagine they need someone who is an actor who needs to play the drums. There you go. You're there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and the tools are infinite really in terms of what how you can fill that up. But
Mm-hmm.
um, that's that's for me what it's about. It's like how many tools from life can I grab,
Mm-hmm.
um, and then how can I like use those, you know? But I do lean to much. I lean. That's what I mean. There's different types of actors. Some people are, you know, they're very technique. They can do it. They don't need to be in character for a month. Um, but for me personally, I need it. I need to go all in. Like I need to really that appeals to me more actually, the call it method side of things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, that makes totally sense, and I think it's a good way of approaching it because, like, in one side, there's different methods. There's the skill. There's the practice, like what you're mentioning, and in the other side, there's those actors that just play themselves in every single movie. And what is this?
Yeah, yeah,
You know what I'm talking about. You know what you
abs
expect.
absolutely. And I've realized in recent times, I'm very interested in stretching further from myself. That's actually what appeals to me. I'm not that interested in just playing a version of myself, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So those opportunities are, I think, you know, they can be rare, but for me personally, and it's been so important for me to realize this, it is that it can be quite freeing to try and stretch far from yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And I love the challenge of that, and that's what appeals to me about this craft.
Mm-hmm. You know, a terrific actor. Ah, man, he's so good. Michael Fassbender. I love that guy.
Mm,
Every movie that he plays in is like it's amazing. I watched Steve Jobs recently. He plays Steve Jobs like he doesn't look anything like Steve Jobs. Nothing. But 1 minute in, 2 minutes in the movie, that's Steve Jobs. You believe it. He
mm.
sell it so well. Like his mannerisms, the way he speaks, is just amazing.
It's awesome because it's not an impression, it's an interpretation
Yeah.
of the person. And you're right, there's like it may not look like it, but he has an interpretation of this man and he's presenting that and it's believable. So it's yeah, another top tier guy, you know,
Yeah.
like really, really inspiring stuff.
Yeah, yeah, totally. And if you look like there was another movie from Steve Jobs with Ashton Kutcher. Ashton Kutcher even looks physically more like Steve Jobs,
Mm.
but he didn't do a job good enough. I think he was. I don't know. I don't know. It's just
No, I think that's a good example of the two different types of actors.
yeah.
I think that's a good example there. And it's not right or wrong. It's just we're all so individual and we're all made in such different ways. But for me, it really is storytelling. It's like, you know, what are we trying to say?
Hmm.
That's the biggest thing for me now is like, what are we trying to say here? And if I can offer something to that, whether I'm writing it or performing in it, you know, what can I offer to this? And if I can bring something to it, that's awesome. But for me, it's like, what are we trying to say here? If we're not trying to say anything, um, you know, or give a point of view, it's maybe not so interesting.
Mm. Okay. So let's say, Daniel, they call you to be part of the new Fast and Furious movie. What'd you say? What? How
um,
would you react?
I would look at the people, the time, the script. Um, I'd look at you know, is this scary? I'd look at all the pieces, and then I would make. It's not as simple as just yeah, yay, or it's like I would really look at a number of things and make a making a you know an assessment on that. But yeah, I think I can't give you a simple. It's the dream. It's the dream, right? To be offered
Mm.
a huge franchise, like to be offered a few huge franchise thing. I mean, that's that's massive. But for me, things have to kind of align with my moral integrity. And when it comes to storytelling, and my experience on sets, there's a number of things um, that I look at
Mm-hmm.
now. But when the opportunities are there, it's it's tough, particularly in these past years with COVID, and then um, strikes in America, particularly. It's like it's 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 a tough gig. It's a tough gig
In Hollywood?
everywhere,
Everywhere. Okay.
everywhere,
Okay.
everywhere. I just think when the pieces, what I seek is really healthy, collaborative, awesome collaborative experiences.
I see.
I love the collaborative side of it. And the thing about filmmaking is that there's so many pieces moving. It's almost like, you're trying to shoot like arrows through all these different, and any one of these pieces can like fall apart
Mm-hmm.
at any stage of the filmmaking process, before, during, and after. And the collaborative side of it, when you find that's all like gelling, that's an awesome thing. And that's quite a tricky thing to find, but that's what I seek.
I see. Yeah. Yeah, that makes totally sense. How many movies you hear every day that are being canceled or postponed, or about drama, just simple drama that happens on set with like directors yelling and mistreating actors.
I've I've seen it and I've been part of it.
Oh,
Um, I've witnessed it. I've been part of it. I've yeah, I've seen it firsthand, and yeah, it seriously can fall down for any number of reasons. So the fact that any film gets finished is a miracle in my eyes, and no, it's really to be celebrated, because just getting that film finished in itself is uh is no small feat,
mm,
because of all the constraints and all the moving pieces and all the different stages, and it's really to be celebrated when a film gets finished.
mm-hmm. I watched the Star Wars documentary not a long time ago, and everyone praises George Lucas for being, well, George Lucas. He created Star Wars, of course, and it's amazing, and I love it. I mean, a lot of people love it, of course, but when you look behind the scenes, he was like a person in a big puzzle, like the way why the Death Star has this sharp light on it was because like I don't know, like some internal drama, because George Lucas wanted some more soft light, and the guy who responsible for the light was, I don't know. I'm butchering the story. I don't remember the story very well, but he just did it the sharp light to piss George Lucas off, and it created like an iconic look that everyone loves. Apparently, the editing was made by his wife. Guys, I know a little bit. I'm sure there's a lot of Star Wars fans now that are hating me because I'm not explaining it correctly, but so many small details that came together to create this masterpiece. And George Lucas, of course, he was at the top of the whole thing, directing the whole thing, but so many other amazing people collaborated in order to create what you said is like a miracle.
That's the thing. It's
Yeah,
it's just a massive team effort, and
yeah,
everybody. That's what I mean. Every role is just as important, whether it's the person in the grips or the sound. Or it's all just so pivotal, and I actually really just appreciate it when there's no ego,
yeah.
when the egos, because if ego, and the thing is, I've experienced this in bands as well. It's, when you get three or four creative people trying to make something, you get personalities and creative differences and egos, and I've just found the most positive collaborative experiences have been when there's the ego is left at the door. It's how can we serve this thing that we're trying to do, not how can you know not the ego based stuff.
Not the ego based stuff, but Listen, Daniel, this requires some certain level of maturity that not everyone might have, you know?
I agree. I
Yeah.
absolutely, and because and I'm not saying ego is the whole thing, and it's the ego doesn't just disappear, right? It's like
Mhm.
how do we manage our egos? But for me personally, I've always had a strong interest in self-development and
Mhm.
personal growth. It's just the way I'm made. I've always been fascinated with the experiences that can help me grow. Martial arts has been a huge part of that for me,
Mhm.
and it's just like how can I, and even with when things go wrong, how can I grow from this challenge?
Mhm.
Um,
What
and
do you
it's not this.
what do you practice as martial art?
Yeah, so I did ninjutsu in Australia.
Wow.
Yeah, and I was very it was really important and awesome. This was after London. I returned to Australia and trained with an amazing sensei, Sensei Sean Genders, and my buddy Darian. Trained on the beach in ninjutsu, and it again just changed my life for the better. Um, the things the things we learned in the martial arts, you start taking into life, and it could, you can kind of joke about like the Karate Kid, the what the whys, but you really the things you learn in martial arts, like taking them out into life. It's like personally, it just helped me so much through like difficult times.
Hmm. So many people say that. I listen to Joe Rogan a lot, right? And he said that just the best thing ever. I think he practiced jujitsu, and he said it's like the best thing ever because you just remember, it just make you remember like your place. Like there's always someone stronger than you can, just punch you. So it's a good,
It's
yeah,
it humbles you. It
yeah.
humbles the struggle of it humbles you. And I think Joe Rogan said was martial arts is a conduit or a vehicle
Mm,
for human growth. I can't remember exactly what it was like that, and that's what it is. It's like it's a vehicle for you to grow as a person. Uh, so you haven't dabbled in any martial arts or boxing or
I did. I
cool.
I think for 4 years I practiced Pakwa. Have you heard about?
Yeah, yeah.
It was a very interesting experience. I grown up watching anime and stuff like that, and Pakwa offered like several classes. One like sword fighting with like samurai sword. I was like that's freaking cool. Then another one was like bow and arrow, and then there was also the traditional martial art. And I really enjoyed. I had a lot of fun there, and but I was a teenager, stupid teenager. I was just doing it because it was cool looking. I had no idea of becoming humble, and like at the end of the day, it was just like a conduit for me to release a little bit of my energy. But that was my interpretation at the time.
But that's cool in its own way, you know.
Yeah.
I think, like I've said, I often look for the meaning in things, but it doesn't mean it's not cool just to learn how to do some fancy moves or whatever.
Yeah.
But for me, it was just a really special time for personal growth.
Hmm. There's a quote. So it goes something like that. If you take if you take ego and fear off the equation, we would have like peace around the world.
It's a big one, man. It's a big one. It seems to be what was it? Oh, fear. Yeah, fear. Absolutely, absolutely. I think the fear can just stop us in our tracks. It can make us, yeah, it's fear is really quite dangerous, and the ego, like I said, the greed, stuff, self, not thinking as a broader community. That's a big statement. Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree with it. Yeah.
It's not mine though.
It doesn't, yeah.
So art martial arts, would you recommend something else to
For
for ego
for
and humbleness?
all of it, man. Like for me, my experiences have been artistic, creative expression,
Hmm.
martial arts, music, um, film, but all these things have just helped me grow as a person. But ultimately,
Mm.
fatherhood changed me and you hear so many cliches about becoming a father. Um, for me, it's the biggest one. My reason for being in Germany is to be the best father I can be. Um, that has driven, my son has been my driving force. So for me, that's been the biggest teacher, is being a dad.
That's beautiful. How old is he?
He's 11 now. He's
Mm.
11.
So he
Yeah.
already understands what you do. He can look up to you.
This is it took him a while. It took him a while to understand what I do because I do different things,
Okay.
and because I don't fit the normal of what he sees. Um, it's take, but now he you know, in recent years I've actually been really it's so important for him to see me trying and failing, than me not trying. So if he sees me go for something and it doesn't work out, like, if I do 5 auditions in a week or something and it doesn't work out, rather than me not talking about that, it's actually cool for me to say, hey, I put my time into 5 auditions and it didn't work out. But then I give him the realities of that. I'm like, this is just what you do, and I'm not down about it. This is part of the process. So he gets a picture of, like, he doesn't just think, oh, what did Papa do this week? I don't know what he did. He's like, okay, I know he put his time into that, and I understand that he didn't get it, but he sees me doing this, and that's really important, I think.
Hmm. So you allow yourself to fail. Yeah, that's like a theme that keeps repeating itself here on the podcast. I had yeah, it's so interesting. I had the past 3 or 4 episodes. That's something that people brings up. Like you need to allow yourself to fail in order to grow. And it's like failing. It's a stigma in
Mm.
our society. You go to school, you're not supposed to get bad grades, you're not supposed to fail. Dude, you need to suck in order to improve.
I agree. I just and I have talked about it, but for me, being in Germany, I don't know how's your level of German? We're probably going way off on a thing here, but how's your German?
Oh, I would say is C1, B2, C1. So there's, for those listening, there's A1, A2, B1, B2, C1, C2. C2 is the last one. And I would say I'm between B2 and C1. But the thing is, Daniel, is that I live in a bubble. I live in a bubble with my coworkers. We always speak English. They kind of try to push me to speak German, but it's so at work. I just want to get job done, so we always speak English. And yeah, that's
I
it.
get it. I get it 100%. I've lived in a bubble. I've had different phases, but I have been in a bubble as well. But going back to the failure thing,
Mm,
for me, coming here in my 30s and, like, not being able to order a loaf, just a bread,
mm,
one, I was like, I think I'm too old to start learning an entirely different, am I? But then just navigating German and, like, sort of bombing in German
mm,
has again helped helped the growth, because there has been times where I've just fallen down and been like, I can't do this. I just want to, like, sort out this situation. This situation is hard enough, and I'm trying to juggle it in German, and I just want to sort it out. But actually now I, like, embrace it. I
yeah.
embrace it. Because people don't expect you to get it 100% right. I'm very hard on myself. I try and get it perfect,
It
and then it's
depends on
never
the
going.
German. It depends on the.
That's a whole podcast in itself.
Yeah. Sorry, go on.
No, I've Yeah, I've it can be quite, it's given me I don't know about you, but it's given me a thick skin here.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah, same. So, humbleness, fatherhood, martial arts, sucking at something new. Those are all good, good points. Um, I went to university in Brazil a couple years ago. I studied game design, and one of the classes in game design was cinema. And our teacher, cinema teacher, I'm sorry, said that inside of a set, movie set, we have the director, and the director is basically God. Whatever he says, it goes. You need to just obey because he's the one overseeing it all. He might know things that you don't know, and that's how it goes. Is that correct?
I love, I love the way you framed that. That's I love it. We've covered the method and now, yeah, directing. There are some, call it modes of thought, that believe that director should be almost like a dictatorship. And I personally, from experience, I'm not into this at all. I believe that a director has to have a very clear vision. They have to lead. They have to lead the sh- the team, the steer the boat, right?
Yes.
Um, but I think I think this collaborative aspect is is really awesome to listen to people and to allow people to have their own voice, but to maintain a clear vision uh, at the same time. So I've experienced good directing and bad directing as an actor, and the best directing is when the director has a really clear vision, really clear, but they also allow for moments of play and things that so they have a very this balance between structure. I think structure is really, really important. Having like a foundational structure. This saves the situation when things start going a bit crazy. But directors who allow for spontaneity within that structure, and that allow for uh, suggestions, I think that's great. But at the same time, they have to lead. They have to be real leaders. But the whole dictatorship thing, that personally doesn't float with me so much.
Hmm. Yeah, I can imagine because I think it goes back to what we were talking earlier. There's a lot of ego involved, like you do what I want or get out of here, and yeah, you need to have some balance
And
of structure and creativity, and that's how music goes as well, right? When you're writing a song,
exactly.
yeah.
But and also as actors, we want the feedback. Like if we want to know that we're in safe hands, right? So for me, if I know I'm in safe hands, in terms of I'll be told if that's not working, in a constructive way. This isn't working. That's so much better than like not knowing. Um, we want we want the feedback, we want the adjustment, and we just want to know that we're in safe hands, and that helps with performance.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I think Quentin Tarantino said once that the actor is there acting for the director, not for the camera, not for anyone else, just for the director. And that's the reason why he's never behind the screen. He's always as close as he can to the actor to give him feedback.
Yeah, and I think for me personally, yeah, that whole sitting in the village or watching the monitor thing. Um, a lot of directors do that. A lot of directors do that, but for me, it's like that's almost the theater aspect of it. It's so different, but that is, if you get it, if it's there live, uh, if it's working there, let the cameras pick it up. Don't just sit there watching the monitor.
Hmm.
Um, but again, there's so many different approaches, and directors and actors. There's so many different ways in, and so many different ways of doing it, which is fascinating.
Hmm. Do you have a favorite director, Daniel?
Yes, definitely. And Nicholas Windy Griffin, who the Danish director who he did Drive. Um, he uh, he did the Pushes, the Danish Pusher series early on. Um, Only God Forgives.
Nicholas Wind Griffin
Windig Refn, so
Windig ever.
Wind.
Okay, I never heard about him. That's crazy. Oops. Let me share my screen 1 second. There we go. Writer, director, and producer Nicholas Winding Refn was born in Copenhagen in Denmark. Okay, in the 70s.
Copenhagen.
All right. The Neon Demon, Only God Forgives, Valhalla, Rise, and Drive. Oh, Drive. I know that one. That's amazing. That's a really good movie.
Yeah, yeah. It's one of my top five, to be honest.
Hmm.
That just the whole ethos, the way he makes his films, his stylistic, his soundtracks, um, all of it. He's yeah, really, really awesome director.
What is his ethos?
um, he has a lot of he has a lot of like stillness, and what I love about Drive is particularly Ryan Gosling's character is there's barely any dialogue. And for me, what fascinates me about acting is far more the behavioral stuff than the the dialogue. So when things are found through behavior as opposed to just text all the time, that's what appeals to me. And in his films, particularly Drive, Ryan Gosling barely says a thing, but he says so much, and that's what I think is cool.
Okay, so show, don't tell, basically.
Absolutely, but particularly with text, text has been a bit of a sort of frustration for me. Like, I'm always trying to strip away. Like, how can we say this with less? Um, not to deny it when it's needed, but me personally, I'm more interested in the behavior side of things. How can you show something through behavior? He does this a lot in his films, but I'm a big soundtrack guy too because of my music background, and his soundtracks, like, you just the last series he did that I just Copenhagen Cowboy.
Mm-hmm.
When I watched this, I just pumped up the soundtrack because I knew that it was going to be a ride with the soundtrack, and I had to like immerse myself in the whole journey.
Is it on Netflix?
Yeah, Copenhagen Cowboy. Yeah,
All right, I'm gonna take a look.
do I definitely recommend.
But man, this whole show don't tell, that's horrible because how am I gonna be on Instagram while I watch a movie at the same time? I need to have the. Nah, I'm joking, of course.
Don't get me started on the phone. Yeah, I whenever I send something to a friend or something, I'm like, please just do me the favor of not watching this on a phone. Like, at least watch it on a laptop at minimum, you know.
But that's not something you can control. Like that's unfortunately that's how media is
Consumed.
consumed nowadays,
Yeah,
right? So.
and I'm also embracing it, and we won't go down an AI path, but yeah, I am actually embracing, like, how can we make things in this format? If we're watching everything in a portrait format, well, let's kind of embrace that too. I'm not like, oh, anti. I just think when things are shot really cinematically, if the
Hmm.
project is shot cinematically, give it justice by watching it. Even better, watch it with people. Um, a screening for a short film down in Berlin a couple of months ago, and it was just, I said there how awesome it was just to sit with an audience and have a cinematic experience, because we're in danger of losing that bit.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, a friend of mine sent me an article that in I don't know how many years from now, 10 years from now, 20 years from now, cinemas won't be a thing anymore. Like they will still exist. People will go there from time to time, but it's so much more convenient just to sit at home and fire up Netflix either on your phone or your notebook. And it's like humans, they're lazy. They're just gonna do whatever it's easier. And
I think it I think it takes effort to, get out of the house and go do that. But like from a filmmaking perspective, for a while, like I was making little things and sending them off into the internet, and then you get something back, and but you don't really know. You just don't know. When you watch something with an audience, the audience gives you the real truth of it. You
mm-hmm,
can feel you can feel in the room whether it's resonating, whether it's working or not, and that's awesome. Even if it's not working, like you feel it. And with the nature of the internet and just sending stuff here, there, and everywhere, like every day, I get like 20, 30 emails about online film festivals,
mm-hmm,
and it's so crazy because it's so oversaturated, this online film festivals. There are so many now, um, and I'm all up for like as much exposure for projects as possible, but I literally get every day just flooded with, here's a 60% discount to this online film festival. And you just can't filter through filter through it. There's just so much because people have jumped on this online film festival world.
hmm. Is this? I didn't know this was a thing. That's crazy.
Mm, yeah.
So, oh my god. So it's basically a bunch of movies, but there's no one you watch at home, basically. Yeah.
Well, you can register a festival, and then people submit to it, and then you don't even know who's actually watching your film, and then you can get a laurel, these
Mm-hmm.
the things everyone wants on the poster. Uh, so that's appealing, but
Mm-hmm.
there's just so much, and like sometimes these emails are personal. They're like, hey, we checked out your stuff, and you should submit it, but there's just so much of it. It's That's a thing of its own too. I just think going out there face to face, you can't beat that. Like sitting with an audience, community, um, getting the visceral reaction from the audience.
Mm-hmm.
That's that's like what it's about. I hope we don't lose that.
Yeah, I hope so because it's like my interpretation, my take on it would be like going to a concert. I love watching like concerts on YouTube. I have this my favorite cowboy singer Chris Stapleton. I watch like all of his shows on YouTube, but I'm sure like I would pay a lot of money to go to one of his concerts to watch him
I
live because it's different. It's a
I
different.
know that I know that he sings about pickup trucks and stuff. Yeah,
I
is
guess.
he the? No, he's a country and western dude, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I have an appreciation for the storytelling aspect of country music. It's not my style, but I don't know if it's the guy you're talking about. But I was listening to some, and I'm like, wow, this is sitting in a bar drinking whiskey, with my pickup truck outside.
Yeah, yeah, he's amazing. And but yeah, it's different going to the show or going to a concert in real life or going to a stand-up comedy in real life is different from the online experience because you have like this energy, people around you that's something that you don't get online. Yeah.
I went to a gig last night here, an
Yeah.
Australian band, Hollow Coves, and yeah, I mean, sometimes the people around you are annoying. They're like bumping into you, or they're like,
Yeah.
they're trying to have like a quiet moment on stage, and someone's talking behind you or whatever. But that's part of it.
Yeah.
Like that's part of the color of, like, you got to deal with that stuff. And I always feel better when I get out and go
Mm.
and do it. I think it takes, unfortunately now it's like an effort for people. It takes muscle to leave all this screens and get out.
Mm. No, totally, totally. We are social creatures, but because of the rise of technology and screens and social media, I saw somewhere that never in history the average person had so so little friends, so many, how to say, not a lot of friends in real life. Like the average amount of friends that someone has been declining steadily over the years. You know what I mean? Like,
And it's, yeah, what's the definition of a true friend, you know? It's yeah, it's crazy, man. The whole thing about social media is it pushes itself on connection, but it's actually one big disconnect.
totally. So, what do you make? We very shortly, very rapidly mentioned AI. Have you seen this new technology, Sora?
Mm.
And I like they. I think it's from Google. I'm not certain, but apparently you just write a prompt, and it generates like a real looking short movie. What do you make of that?
It's kind of mind-blowing and scary at the same time. And when AI came about as a writer and as a creative, and I was doing voiceover work, um, I had a bit of a panic.
Hmm.
And then I was like, it goes back to what we're saying. Oh, I don't know if we've said it, but it goes back to the soul of something, right? So for me, if something is generated artificially, you know, it can be really slick and really accurate, but there's always this like 10% or part of it that is not connecting with what we want to like feel, like the soul aspect of it. Um, you know, it's like the ebooks or the having the real pages in the hand. And I think when Kindle came out, people were like, "That's the end of the book." But actually, people want to hold the pages. Not everybody, right? But like I love the audio experience of books now. I think that's awesome. But reading, I want to break from the computer. I just because we're on computers all day. When it comes to reading, it's like I want to feel the pages. And I think I'm talking very generally. So in a film aspect, I think there's room for everything still. But for me, again, it's subjective, it's personal choice. And the things that appeal to me is how can we do a lot with less? So, for instance, The Whale, uh, it's one house and five characters or something total. And that movie just it it gave me so much of an experience as opposed to like let's say the superhero movies. Um, So yeah, this it's really scary, but at the same time, I think there's room for everything, and I think it's like how do as a creative, how do you embrace it so that it helps you? Um, you know, so I'm trying to find this, but it's moving so fast and it's also new. It's like once you get your head around something, something else has come in. So I'm just trying to find how I can find like a middle, you know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it will require an adaptation for sure, because the only word that comes to my mind is disruptive. It's so
Disruptor.
disruptor. Yeah, it's so disruptor. It's crazy. It's crazy.
I I was listening to Vanilla Ice talk the other day, you know, this 90s rapper.
Mm.
I grew up with this, like, and he was just saying how glad he is to have really lived in the 90s. And so, so am I, because it was seriously before the world ended with technology, you know?
Yeah, yeah. But it's not only filmmaking. It's also music recording, is image generation, generating images, writing books, is everything. I I cannot see a future where we don't have a universal basic income, because there's gonna be so many people unemployed. It's not now. It's not happening now, but it's gonna happen for sure.
I would be an advocate for universal income.
Yeah.
I think as humans, we want to work, right? I think I think there's a portion of people who would just take the universal income and just not do much or whatever. But I think we actually want to do stuff, but often people don't have the space, right? They're too busy surviving. And when you're just surviving month to month and scrounging, you don't have the space to actually pursue the things that you want to, or that you're naturally like inclined to. And I think in some places, if universal income was there, it could help people stop merely trying to survive. And of course, if you want to make more, you make more on top of that, but your foundation is there. So I'm a like a big. I just think the spread of wealth, this disparity between class, why do you want to live in a big house, like a huge mansion, if it has a wall around it and outside the walls there's people living in poverty? Wouldn't you rather have like a balanced community? That's that's I've gone a little.
That's perfect. No, I mean, you just described Brazil. There's the, like the class disparity in Brazil is just crazy. You have like some pictures online of like those small like residence compounds. Like we have a
Mm.
few houses with like big fences around and just poverty all around it, and it's just sad. But
I don't know how somebody could live in that house though, knowing that like outside the walls.
with cameras, just have cameras and an electric fence, and you're good.
If they feel good about that, personally, I would be like, hey, I want to help my neighbor and let's all thrive as a community. But
Mm.
again, like going for like this element of greed, it just seems to humans. We can't seem to get rid of this ego. You said it earlier with that statement, the ego, the fear stuff. That seems to be a core. A lot of people are focused on the surface stuff, but for each of us as an individual, and this is why I'm so big on like self-reflection, because if I can get myself in a good place, right, then I'm in a position to really help the community and help others and come from a good place. And I just encourage this with everybody to do the self-work so that they're coming from a place of, because the pain in the ego, it can manifest in chaos stuff.
Mhm.
Um,
But don't you think this is just a reflection on how most countries are run? Because politics is basically a bunch of people seeking power. They're not looking to improve people's lives. I mean, maybe a minority of politicians are, but as far as I know, from what I can see, the vast majority of politicians are basically narcissistic assholes and corrupts. That's I don't know any of them particularly, but that's the impression that I get. And if you have a country run by people like this, just naturally, like the fish stinks from the head, right? Just that's the example you're gonna set for the whole nation.
Absolutely. And like when I see leaders or watch leaders, I don't know about you, but I look for inspiration. Like I'm like, okay, they're leading the country. I'm really looking for, occasionally you get it, you get someone who's very charismatic, but most of the time there's not a lot of inspiration for me there. If I watch an athlete, like someone who has won world tennis championships or so, for me, for y- for you to win, I don't want to go down the COVID path, but in Australia, Djokovic, the tennis number one, he was banned at that time in Australia because of the vaccine and stuff, and there were all these politicians saying, you can't do this, you can't do that. But for me personally, the people that I look up to, if you're going to win 20 whatever Grand Slam titles, that takes a serious amount of discipline, sacrifice, self-work, everything. And so I'm going to listen to that inspires me. But when I look to like leaders for inspiration, it's missing in action. It feels like they just have all these people behind them, and they're merely just a puppet for all their corporate uh, interests behind them. And I'm like, it just doesn't float. I'm like, it doesn't really groove.
Yeah. So there's no the thing is there's no requirements when it comes to become a politician. No requirement. You don't need to have a certain age, a certain type of morals. It's like a popularity contest. So the more people you manage to influence, the more power you get, and that doesn't seem to to be working very well.
So how do you think we I'm speaking a lot about like more community,
Mm.
um how do you what do you think a, is there a better model for like
Oh. Who am I to describe a better model for society as a whole? But one thing I can share my personal experience, right? For better or worse, I lived in several places. Here, like I grew up in Brazil. In Brazil, I lived in São Paulo, the capital, and then I lived like in small town, Mairinqui. It's a small city, more like an interior and stuff. I live in France, same thing. I lived in Paris, in the capital, for a couple of years, and then I lived in the mountains in a more small community. Germany, same thing. I lived in Berlin for a couple of years, so capital, and then now in Gütersloh, in small city, smaller city. Every time that I lived, that I was happier, I was living in the smaller city. Every time that I was sadder, my life was not that good. I was not feeling great about myself, more stress, more anxiety. I was living in the big cities, in the capitals. So my own experience just tells me that we, as humans, we work better, we feel better living in smaller communities. I think there's a limit. After that's, I don't know what this limit is, but after we reach this limit, it's just detrimental for the human being. And that's not only me saying, because I know there's studies that back this up. People who live in big capitals, they tend to live less. I think 5 year less. And you cannot tell me that this is good. Come on. So I think there's a limit on how much humans we can fit in a certain area, and after that limit is just detrimental for your well being. So that's
that's be no, but that's beautifully said because you've had this range of experiences in different size cities and towns, and you're speaking directly from personal experience, and that's great. It's like, and I think what you're saying, it comes down to our primitive tribal thing, which was when we were living in tribes and communities, and um, we're losing that, especially with technology. I'm not anti, like I embrace the change, and the technology is awesome as well for all this. Like the fact that we're doing this, like
mm-hmm,
it's really cool. But I think we're losing this sense of, and what, like I said at the start, what I love about Hamburg actually is there is at least a kind of village community vibe.
mm-hmm,
And I haven't experienced this in the bigger cities, Melbourne and London. Um, Here it does feel like there is more community, and that's as a, like you say, the human. I think as humans we crave that, and we're losing it, and somehow we need to get back get back to that.
I agree. I agree, but it just seems that we're going the opposite direction. It feels like we're becoming a global community instead, right? With
Well, global community is cool too. It's like particularly for us as internationals, but like bringing about change. It's like, how can we bring about change as sort of individuals? Well, it's like you say, if it spreads too far, it becomes too. It's like if you could deal with what's around you, maybe that's healthier. I mean, you said it that you just feel better in these smaller communities. And there's the same in going back to London. Like that's what I was saying. Didn't feel like there was a middle to me. Um, so it's a big thing. But again, like even the martial arts, to go back to that, for me, that was connecting back to a primal. It was with sticks and stuff. It was really connecting back to like a tribal, and especially as like dudes, as men, um, sitting around the fire, telling stories, being being able to be honest about our struggles. I think as dudes, we sort of just try and get on with it, keep it to ourselves. We don't want to show weakness or whatever. But whenever I sit with a bunch of dudes and we just talk about like the struggles and stuff, we can all relate.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, but I think we're all. I'm a very social person, but I've been in a bit of a bubble, just especially as an artist and stuff. And I'm really working hard actually to like get out there and get a bit more of a circle.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah, of course. You need different social circles. I had a teacher in high school. He used to say that all the time. Humans are animals. Never forget that. And he would start every class with this quote like humans are animals, and we just make fun of him because that was his phrase basically. But yeah, he's right. We are animal. We don't like to think about ourselves as animals because we have, I don't know, nuclear power. We have movies. But we are. We are.
The big issue is anxiety because it's like our bodies. It's the old, the bodies are still telling us to run from the tiger, but there's no tiger. You've all heard this, right?
Yeah.
So the tiger these days is like somebody at the coffee machine stressing us out in the office or whatever. So our bodies are constantly, because we're wired this way, our bodies are trying to run from a threat that actually isn't there. And the stimulation we're getting from the screens and all this stuff, I think it's just creating very high rates of I don't know the statistics, but I'm hearing that it's really gone up in terms of anxiety
Mm,
and especially with teenagers and stuff. But yeah, we're still trying to run from a tiger that isn't there because that's the way we're wired for survival. Um, and it's all a lot of it's imagined. It's just not. Yeah, I think that's the kind of one of the big problems we face at the moment.
yeah. And then comes Elon Musk and he wants to put the chip in your brain. It's just gonna get worse.
Well, I was gonna say, do you know the test tube? I learned this in architecture at uni. There was a bacteria they grew in a test tube, and it essentially overpopulated and then wiped itself out. And that's kind of like what we are, we are like as humans. We overpopulate. What it did was the bacteria used all the resources in the test tube. It overpopulated, used all the resources, and made itself extinct.
Ooh.
And so we studied this because it was like, are we in danger of this same consuming all the resources on the planet, damaging the planet, overpopulation, and then we wipe ourselves out. That's I don't want to do doomsday stuff, but I always thought about that test tube thing from my from one of the only things that stood out in my architecture degree.
Why you're studying that in architecture?
Oh, because of sustainable design.
Oh, okay, okay.
So yeah, like really embracing like environmentally conscious design, which
Mm,
was vitally important in terms of architecture. Yeah.
mm. I no man, that's a very interesting theme. And if we start talking about it, we're gonna spend another 2 hours. I started like researching about solar panels. I was thinking about having I think they call it balcony solar panels because that's the space I have available right now. And and you don't make a lot of money from it. It's
Mm.
like some cents here and there, but just the concept of being a little bit less dependable on the grid is something that brings me a lot of joy. And
Man,
yeah,
if you grow your own tomato, there's so much satisfaction in it.
yeah, I'm doing it.
It's like you go to the supermarket and there's like a pack of 10 tomatoes in a box with a plastic wrapping, and then you bring it and it costs, it's overpriced. You grow one of those things on your balcony and then you eat it and it's like fresh. It's just like wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I yeah, off the off-grid thing. getting back to communities and nature and um, yeah, all this stuff is really really important. The solar panels, I think it's a long term. It's expensive, but then it's a long term gain. Like it takes a long time, but then it starts to give back. So
Hmm. Yeah, definitely. So, Daniel, I called you Kane Nash at the beginning of the podcast. So, for those who don't know what I'm talking about, so you directed? Did you direct this movie? It's
I did, I did.
so let's talk a little bit more about it because I watched it yesterday and damn, it was pretty fun. When episode 2 is coming out?
I appreciate that, man. Thank you for watching it. That it's actually quite a while ago now. It's still on my website, but that was before the world ended, you know. That was
Oh.
before the pandemic and stuff. No, but the idea behind that was I wanted to shoot I'd been working as a in Germany. I'd been working on removal trucks to get some cash,
Mhm.
uh, and I found it fascinating working on these furniture removal. So going to someone's apartment, moving all their stuff from one apartment to the next. And what I found fascinating about that experience was the diversity of cultures within the teams. Because you often had a bunch of international guys put together trying to move all this stuff from one place to another with a client who was being really difficult. And so you've got like a Ukrainian guy, you've got a guy from Ghana, you've got an Aussie like me, and an American, all trying to do this job together. And then because it's furniture, like stuff was going wrong all the time. And I was like, there's something in this, I think. And then I thought I just will shoot a little pilot about a team on a job, and the job goes wrong and they have to deal with it. So I was a little bit ambitious in that I did everything on it, which I think is a good thing. But I wrote it, I directed, I was in it also. But I was juggling a lot to get that to get that, like I said earlier, to get that over the line um, was awesome, really. And then not only to get it over the line, and I know I was criticizing these online festivals before, but I did get a couple of awards from these guys, these online festivals, and that was just really affirming for me. I was like, hey, I have this idea. I put the team together. I wrote it, shot it, uh, and so it was a really to have it resonate and to have like some positive feedback was just fantastic. So I'm really proud of it. I'm really proud of it.
Yeah, it's great. I had fun. I think so. Just for context for our listeners, we're talking about a short movie. It's called Tippy Top, right?
Yeah.
All right. So you can watch it online. It's on Daniel's website. We're gonna leave in the link in the description below. And so it's about 10 minutes. I'm correct? Let's see.
Yeah, yeah, it's
12,
12 minutes, I think.
12
Yeah, yeah.
minutes, and it's fun. I when I first saw the poster and everything, like the key art, I was like, damn, where's this? I looked on Netflix. I was surprised that it was not on Netflix because it looks professional. Like it is professional.
I appreciate that. I think what I've seen, like, I made this movie, I made this little short with no money. I used the resources I had, the people around me. Um, but I was like, if you're gonna make something like that you're proud of and that people put work into, at least give it a good poster because
Yeah.
because a lot of people they're gonna see the poster first, and it's like if you have a crappy poster, you can really undermine like the thing that you've tried to make. So at least just give it a good poster. And these days with all the graphic stuff, it's not that hard to make a good film poster.
Mm.
So that was important for me. It was like do the thing as best as you can, but then represent it well, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's my. But yeah, I think I tried to make it fun. But with if you want to look deeper, there are a few deeper messages in terms of how do we like unite as different cultures. But it's fun. It's fun. It's like it's pretty simple. You got to get this stuff from here to there. The boss is like he's sort of a bit of a character, and then stuff goes wrong, and how do they deal with it, you know?
It worked. It worked. From experience, like the best ideas, like project stuff, like comes from the simplest concept. You know, like you have a simple concept, you do it well, it works. It's good. You know, you don't need a complicated concept to make a amazing movie. Like,
I I would agree, and like I think it was Steven Soderbergh or someone. He said, confusing people doesn't make you an artist, right? So, and it's true. It's like, you go to some experiment, and I'm all for experimentation, right? But if
mm,
you go to some experimental student film or something, and you walk out and your head is just spinning because you're like, what happened?
mm.
I don't know, I'm like, I try and keep some narrative there, but that's my stylistic choice, each to their own, So,
So, when it comes to cameras, which camera did you use to shoot?
oh, on that one we used a Black Magic. Uh, that was a while ago. Yeah, that's the Da Vinci Resolve program uses Black Magic.
Okay. So for a beginner filmmaker, would you recommend Black Magic?
It's a good question.
Or this
Probably
is more professional? I have no idea. So.
no. That's a good. I think any high end. I mean, you can get pretty decent. Like I actually have just shot something else, actually just using my Vlog
Mhm,
camera, my Sony ZV-1, which is a 600 euro Vlog camera.
mhm.
Um, I pushed that on this little thing I shot. I pushed that as hard as I could. I'm not a DP, right? I know for a fact I am not a cameraman. I know what my strengths are, and I did a job as a camera assistant, and I got fired.
What? What happened?
I did. I didn't get fired, but let's just say it. Like I was trying to be the camera assistant, and it just didn't. It's not my thing. I can direct. I have a vision for the story and the writing and performance, but the camera side of things, I obviously need to know what look I'm going for. And I'm currently like educating myself on lenses and what's the stylistic choice in terms of the look. But I realized by shooting this thing with my little Vlog camera,
Hmm.
I gave it a little color grade and stuff, and it came out pretty good considering I was using a $600 camera. But I think if you have a camera that's upper level, a couple of grand, you can really get some good stuff out of it. Whatever it is, whether it's a Sony or Canon, Blackmagic, whatever, you can really. But for me, it comes down to story. Like if you have limited resources, it's story and audio are big factors. Like this I haven't seen it, so I shouldn't really comment it. But this Zone of Interest film, which got a lot of attention and had an Oscar. It's all in a lot of it's in the soundtrack. It's about what's happening with the sound, so you don't see it. It's all what's happening over the wall. This house is next to the concentration camp, and you're just hearing sounds from the camp, and the sounds are driving the whole thing. So I'm always coming from this place of really limited resources at the moment, and I like it because it's a real challenge. How can we do this with limited stuff? And for me, it's like get the story down, and then use the tools you have um, as a starting point. I think ideally you'd love to have all the equipment at your mercy, but yeah,
Yeah, you need to start where you are, or with you have, or
yeah,
with what you have, because
yep,
when it comes to those camera equipments, I'm no expert, but from what I know, like it can get so insanely expensive, like it basically has no end. you can get cameras that cost millions and millions of dollars from what I know. Even like the devices to hold those cameras, I don't know how they're called, but they look like mecha suits. You probably know what I'm talking about. And
Yeah.
who God knows how much one of those costs. So
I think what you said is great. Like, just if you've got an idea,
yeah.
I mean, you could choose that. You've got a phone in the hand, right, with a pretty good camera on it. Like, if you can work up a concept, you've got a story there, you've got a scene, just go out and shoot it. And as soon as you start shooting, you start learning. And it's a cliche again, but it's all in the doing. This tippy top experience was intense in that I was wearing so many hats,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
probably too many. It took a couple, like it was exhausting, but I was so proud that I did that. But and I like wearing these multiple hats, but it's about what's best for the piece. If if you're trying to act and direct, is that best for the performance? Like, you got to be realistic about what's the best balance. But yeah, just use the stuff around, use what the ideas you have and the tools you have, and just start making stuff because it's going to teach you immediately.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it worked out. Congratulations. Well done, Daniel.
Well, I feel like I'm only just getting started, to be honest. So, you know, um, this is the I've got a good amount of experience now, and I'm really excited to draw from all the experience I've had and keep going.
Please do. And again, when's the episode number 2 coming out?
Yeah, I appreciate that. I appreciate that. Let's see. Let's see. I haven't spoken about it for a while, so you've reinvigorated some ideas there.
All right, guys. So go watch Tippy Top on lionfurypro.wixsite.com. We're gonna leave it on the link on the description below. So that's your first short film, basically.
Yeah, I did a little docker. It's actually best to go to my website, danthomas.net.
Okay.
Yeah, that's where all my projects are. There's also another little doco I shot on there about my drum teacher. So that's on there too. And then there's some clips of my acting work and other podcasts.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so danthomas.net is the hub of all the projects. But I'm open to collaboration. So yeah, if anybody's, well, I guess in Germany, well, yeah, just don't hesitate to reach out.
So you have a book as well. It's a novel. It's called Ride. Could you tell a little bit more about?
Yeah, so I also self-published a novel a few years back, and it was a fictional novel, but it was based on my experience playing drums and in London. Um, so I drew from my experiences and took this character from Australia to London, Tommy Chase, and he is playing drums and he's trying to survive, basically.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a really important little exercise. I crowdfunded the book, actually, and I was so amazed to have the support of the crowdfunding, and then I self-published it, and yeah, I've had good feedback from it. It was a really important exercise to start that process and finish it for me. Um, to get that, it's a big thing writing a novel, and just to get it out and done gave me a lot of motivation to keep going.
How long did it take you to write?
So it took me quite a long time. I spent a year on it as its kind of final thing, but yeah, I'm always writing, and I end up with like piles of stuff, and then I realize that there's different projects within that pile of stuff. So I had a big pile, and I realized that book was one part of that pile.
Mm-hmm.
I think stories are suited to different projects. I think some stories are books, some are films, some are, and important to get a grasp of is this better told in a book, or is this better shared as a, what's best for that story.
So first you come up with a story, and then you decide if it's better like a movie or it's a book, but it always starts with the story
I'd say it's more of a concept. So
concept.
I'm like, I know I know this is what I know this is what it is, and then I'm like, well, how's that gonna work? Is this good visually, do you think, or is this do you need to dive into more of more in a writing sense?
Hmm.
I try and think it's really not easy though. Sometimes I'm like, I'm not sure if this is best in that way. But like for Tippy Top, for instance, I was like, yeah, this is cool because it's action and there's potentially a bit of comedy and it makes sense. Just like that, that's not a that's not a novel. Uh, so yeah, but it's taken me a few years to get a grasp of thinking about what's the best way to what is the best medium to get this story or concept out there.
Hmm. It's really funny how every director or every artist approach like the creation like process of creating like a movie or anything like a book differently. I remember um, I went to this talk from a concept artist who work with Michael Bay, and Michael Bay, he would request like specific scenes to be drawn, painted on the concept art first, and then he would first try to find those key concept arts, key striking visual elements, and then he would build the story between them.
That's awesome. I've heard that approach too. Like have one frame, one distinct image, and then let the stuff. I haven't tried that. My thing is very much writing. So
Yeah.
I have a daily practice of trying to write for at least 1 or 2 hours a day. And if I do that, even if the rest of the day gets away from me, it's okay because I know I've hit that couple of hours. And sometimes that couple of hours is one sentence, and I'm like frustrated. But sometimes it's more just again, it's not. There's nothing sort of. It's really in the routine and the mundane stuff of just everyday focused writing. And the more I've done that, because I've been doing that for a long, long time, and the more I've been consistent with that and working it like a muscle, the more that's like benefited me in terms of, you know, getting these concepts further along. That's just my process. But yeah, I'm also a visual person, so using one image and then letting that inform. There's so many ways to try, I think.
Yeah, but having consistency, creating a habit, those are fundamentals. Like those are things that you cannot get away from. I had Durrell DT, he's a YouTuber, on the show last week, and like he said it, like if you wanna have success, if you wanna improve, you need to have consistency. You need to be consistent with your uploads, your videos, and I see that across every activity, everything that you do, you want to get better, you need to have consistency. There's no way around it.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
man. And yeah, just consistent. And even like it's also being consistent when things get away from you. Like if you have that two hours where it's just frustrating, just step away from it. I like to change space. So
Mm.
you, I think there's something that I've learned in recent years because I think this we could really go off on one again, but I think this model of 9 to 5 at a desk, I don't think this works for us as humans, right? I've experienced this, right? When I say I burnt out at the start, um, I'm the most productive. So if I write for a couple of hours and then I change my space, so I come to the desk or the office for an hour, then I hit the gym. Then when I come back again, I'm ready to go again. So throughout the day, I change spaces 3 or 4 times with like exercise in the middle. And if in the morning part by lunchtime, if I'm really frustrated creatively, when I come back from the gym, I'm ready to go again. If I didn't go and do some exercise or walking or whatever, the day would probably be finished. But when I transition spaces and activities, it makes me more productive.
That sounds very healthy. That sounds. The reason why I say that, have you seen Mark Wahlberg routine? I think he published it online. Like,
I watched what Mark Wahlberg eats last week, but I
mm,
didn't watch. But I'm fascinated by his. I know his routine because he's up at like 4 a.m. Um, and he has a regimented thing, and it's inspirational, man. That's what I mean about inspiring people. Like he's right, acting and stuff. It could be, you got to be like an athlete, and the way he approaches the work is like an athlete. And I'm always checking out his stuff because he's achieved at the highest level. And then you look at his routine and his consistency, and it's not, there's a lot of talk in this entertainment industry. There's a lot of talk, 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 talk. But as you said just before, like what are the non-negotiables and what are the practical things that you could do? And I've just knowing the more practical and the more consistent I've become with my processes, it just it just helps the work no end.
mm, mhm. Wonderful. Daniel, let's end there. Do you have any final remarks? Anything else that you'd like to
Uh,
say?
no, I appreciate this experience. I really appreciate the opportunity to chat. It's been some good stuff. Um, yeah, and it's awesome that we can do this, and let's do it in person sometime.
Hopefully, yeah. We're both in Germany. Why
We're
not?
both in we're both in Germany, and we can yeah, a whole nother thing is the life in Germany. That's a
Yeah.
whole thing of its own as an international. So
Daniel, it has been a pleasure. I really like how humble you are, how honest you are. Like your work ethics was very inspirational. So thank you very much.
thank you, Bruno.
All right, everyone. Thank you very much. Thank you for being here. If it's your first time watching, make sure to like and subscribe. If you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, make sure to rank the show 5 stars. This will ensure that the podcast will be recommended to even more people and allow me to keep doing what I love. Check out now the BruCast store. Explore a store filled with awesome goodies from hoodies to t-shirts to mugs. We've got you covered. Stay in style with BruCast. Embrace the shock. Set the trend. Buy now at brew-cast.com/store. I repeat, brew-cast.com/store. Link on the description below. BruCast is also on Instagram, X, and TikTok, where we upload shorts with the highlights of the show. So follow now BruCast on X, Instagram, and TikTok. Links on the description below. Daniel, has been a pleasure. Bye, everyone. See you next time. Bye bye.
Bye, guys.
Bye bye.